In just over a week, the Chinese Communist Party will be recognizing its 100th anniversary, founded back in 1921. And in recent years, most of the focus in Chinese politics has really centered on Xi Jinping himself as both the General Secretary of the party, the president of the country, and the way that he has consolidated his power in ways that previous leaders had been unable to do. But the focus on Xi himself as an individual leader moves attention away from a parallel trend, which is the greater prominence of the CCP in everyday life. For much of the reform era, the party had become less visible, in many ways less relevant for most people in China. But under Xi Jinping, the party is once again at the center of everything. And this is what I refer to as the revival of Leninism in the country, that the Leninist nature of the party and the political system is becoming more prominent, more important than it had been in the recent past. So I look at three key aspects of what a Leninist party is all about, and then look at the implications of them. And so the three key factors are selective recruitment into the party's oversight over the government, especially the policy process, and the way in which the party monitors and controls society. And most of the trends I'll be talking about didn't begin with Xi. There's sort of perennial features of the Communist Party, but they've been accentuated under Xi's rule. So first of all, looking at selective recruitment. The party has been very selective at who it admits into the party. Less than 7% of the population belongs to the party. So it's a very small selective group, still a very elite party, but it's no longer the traditional revolutionary classes of the farmers, the workers, and the soldiers. Now it's the urban educated elite, in many ways the middle class, that is now the key elements, key aspects of the party. The main group of people who are the main pool of new members of the party are college students. And again, focusing on sort of the importance of the skills, the traits that the party needs to pursue its economic agenda. And that's a key element. Most people who join the party are not joining because of particular ideological or political affinity for the party. They're doing it for the career benefits, and the party recognizes that. Most people who join the party do not work for the party or the government bureaucracies. They work for state-owned enterprises, they work for private enterprises, or even international ones, banks, hospitals, universities. There's a recognition in all these areas that there's a definite glass ceiling for people who are not party members. So if you want to rise to prominent positions, even mid-level positions, whether for the state bureaucracy or in the private sector, finance, whatever, being a party member has key advantages. And so that's why typically most people join the party. And that's been true for the past couple of decades, for much of the reform period. What has changed is now that the party expects more from its members than it used to. Expects them to get involved in voluntary efforts of mobilizing them for different activities that would serve as role models for other people. It expects them to show more explicit forms of support and loyalty to the party than they used to, and expects them to attend party meetings much more often than they used to read every speech that Xi Jinping gives, every major document, in sort of an intrusion in the lives of everyday party members that were not there before. Another key trend is that the party is more selective than it used to be. It's always been hard to get into the party, but under Xi, it's been growing much more slowly. In the years before Xi came into office, the party was growing about 3% per year. It's down to about 1% per year now, where there's greater scrutiny over who gets in, and the numbers are just smaller. And one consequence of that is that fewer people are applying to join, either because they no longer see it being beneficial or don't want to be in the party, or they don't think it's worth applying because because it's tougher to get in. Exactly why that trend exists is hard to know without more direct research, but almost any research having to do with party is sensitive, and this certainly is one of them. So one key aspect of a Leninist party is that it is very selective at who it lets in. A second key aspect of it is how it oversees the government and especially the policy process. One way of doing so is that it appoints its own members to all key party and government positions, military positions as well, appoints them, and they're sort of their agents in different parts of bureaucracy. Another key way of overseeing what the government does and how policy is implemented is through what are known as leading small groups. These are official, formal groups, often not very well publicized, but the number of them has really blossomed during the Xi Jinping era. So there's about 50% more of these leading small groups than there were when Xi came into office, and he himself chairs most of these new ones, as well as some of the original ones. So it's both Xi getting more consolidation over the policy process, but the party itself having a more central role of overseeing different policy arenas. In years ago, scholars like Ken Lieberthal, Mike Oxenberg, Mike Lampton wrote about the fragmented authoritarian nature of the policy process in China. Under Xi Jinping, it's less fragmented and much more authoritarian, much more centralized, with the party overseeing much of what happens. At the local level, local officials have less incentive now to be innovative, to pursue new reforms, in large part because of the anti-corruption campaign that rooted out so many of both Xi's alleged opponents, but also had somewhat of a chilling effect on local officials as being unwilling to rock the boat, try something new for fear that they might be seen as being unloyal to Xi. So mostly what local officials are concerned about is making clear that they are supportive of his policy agenda. And that's likely to continue up through the 20th Party Congress that will happen in fall of 2022. So in different ways, the policy process becoming more centralized, and the party having more control over all key aspects of it. The third element to look at is the way in which the party monitors and tries to control society in two key ways. One is what's referred to as party building, where it creates party cells within workplaces and neighborhoods to both monitor what party members are doing there, but also to be the party's eyes and ears for what happens in those areas. Two key areas that have been focused on under Xi has been the private sector and civil society organizations. So the party has been actively trying to build party cells in private firms going back to the 1990s, but especially into the 2000s. By 2017, over 70% of private firms had party cells within them. Originally, these party cells weren't that much of an obstacle to what the firms did. In many cases, if the owner himself or herself was a party member, they would share the party cell in their own firm. So it had more of a supportive role. Now the party seems to want to have more explicit statements and showings of loyalty to the party and to Xi in particular in exchange for the party's support for their activities. Social organizations or NGOs in the country, there are somewhere around 600,000 officially registered NGOs in the country. Estimates are over 1 million more unregistered but active. But just in the past few months, there's been a renewed effort to shut down the unregistered NGOs or force them to become officially registered. Back in 2017, the last time the party reported information about the number of its party cells in both private firms and in NGOs. It reported had 60% of these NGOs had a party cell within them. It's probably an exaggeration. It probably only includes the officially registered NGOs and the ones that are big enough to have the right number of party members, and most of them are quite small, but nevertheless, an indication that it is trying to actively control what's happening within these organizations. The party sees civil society as a much bigger threat than the private sector, and so it is trying to control the organizations, less interested in recruiting the leaders of the organizations into the party the way it has for private entrepreneurs. At the local level, local officials recognize the benefits of these organizations, that they provide useful services, they provide job training, they provide cultural activities, they provide environmental awareness. And so in the past, they've worked with both registered and unregistered organizations. Under Xi, there's now an effort to really clamp down on and even eliminate the unregistered ones. Second way the party tries to monitor and control society is through technology. We've seen this most extensively in Xinjiang, but it's been rolling out to other parts of the country as well. During the period of the party's attempt to control COVID in the country, it used technology to be able to, people had to report on a daily basis their health conditions. They had to use a QR code on their cell phone to board buses, to enter buildings, to get into classrooms. There are now, in most universities, cameras in classrooms to record and monitor what teachers and students have to say. The CCP is now better able to monitor where people are going, who they're meeting, what they're doing in real time in ways they never could before. The party has always wanted to have that type of monitoring capability, and technology now gives it the opportunity to do so. Combined with greater censorship and control over the use of VPNs in the country for people to access information online, the CCP is better able to both monitor and control the flow of information throughout society. So what is the implications of these trends? So I want to ask 3 questions for which I don't have the answer to. I wish I did, because it would tell us much about the future of the party. First of all, are this reassertion of the party's Leninist qualities and reintroduction into most aspects of life in China, is this Xi's own priorities, or is there more of a general consensus among party leaders? It's difficult to say given how opaque the top leadership of the party is. In regards to whether it's his own personal predilections or consensus view, what are they afraid of? Why are they so worried about trying to monitor and control so much? There's no organized opposition in the country. There's no opposition leader like Nelson Mandela in South Africa, or Sakharov, Solzhenitsyn, more recently, Navalny in Russia. Previous studies show repeatedly high levels of popular support for the party. So why is the party trying so hard to monitor private firms, NGOs, universities, and society more generally? Third, how viable is this renewed emphasis on Leninism, the Leninist character of the party, and the ties between the party and the people? Society is now more diverse, more mobile, more technologically savvy than it used to be. The old ways of party control may not work in this situation. In fact, they never worked that well to begin with. But now with increasing diverse society, probably even less likely to be effective. By reasserting the party into everyday life, they may overplay their hand and lead to a backlash as people feel the pinch of the party's attempts to control it, even though they pose no particular threat to the party. Now, this type of backlash is often predicted, but we've seen so far very little evidence of it, but it's something important to watch. So these are kind of 3 questions having to do with the party going forward, and the answers to those questions as they unfold in coming months and years will tell us much about the ongoing viability of the party as China's ruling party now that it's turning 100. With that, thank you. I look forward to your comments, questions later on in our event today.